Hey everybody, so today we're talking about interactions with natives and slavery in the colonies. We already talked about the basics of slavery in previous lectures and previous homeworks, but we're going to be talking about resistance and accommodation today and the communities that they are building. So we start off with tribalization. So as our imperial conflicts are coming to North America, as Europe's coming to North America and they're having those conflicts, Native Americans are going to adapt to the demands that are happening to them of what European settlers want from them. Some new tribes, like the Catawbas, are going to come together from other remnants of larger groups, and other nations like the Iroquois are going to decline in numbers but are going to sustain themselves by adopting war captives and alliance systems. I'll talk about more in a minute. But some other fragmented communities are going to adopt this idea of tribalization, that they are going to bring these communities together in order to form new coherent tribes, that they've had little bits and pieces of other tribes that did exist but are declining. And so that's like the Creek Indians are going to use this form of tribalization, that they're going to do this kind of banding together in order to meet more effectively with European demand, and in order to kind of deal more effectively with European neighbors that they have. And this is ways for them to deal with the outside influence by being stronger together. So then we have the covenant claim. The Iroquois made an alliance with both the French and the English. They're kind of up towards the New York area. And their intention was to remain neutral in future conflicts, but the warriors of the Iroquois still participate in wartime, but they had a representative go to New York and New France regularly in order to affirm alliances, as well as to receive diplomatic gifts like guns, powder, lead, clothing, rum from the English, brandy from the French. And the neutrality that they talked about them having made them a highly sought after ally. France and England were all the time, we're like, hey, you're our ally, right? You're our ally, not their ally. And then they try to win them over more. The alliance with New York is going to become a covenant claim, and that is going to become a model for relations between the British Empire and natives for the future. So it's this whole idea of natives kind of banding together, that they're trying to be allied with the European powers, and they're going to try to remain neutral and out of stuff, but not really be neutral and out of stuff, but just being a highly sought after ally. All right. Our Indian goals. This is going to kind of depend on the tribal area they're talking about. So the Creeks. The Creeks are going to seek to become the dominant tribe in the southeast. They are going to destroy the Franciscan missions in Florida. So remember, Spanish were trying to bring religion with them, and in order to do that, they were setting up missions in order to convert the natives. They're going to attack Spanish settlement in Pensacola. They're going to capture 1,000 Appalachians, whom they are going to sell to South Carolina slave traders for sale in the West Indies. That was another native tribe. And then in 1750, when the English settlers are going to demand payment for their trade debts, the Creeks and Yemasees are going to revolt. They're going to kill 400 colonists. They're going to be overwhelmed by the Carolinians, and they're going to make them their new Indian, their new Indian allies, the Cherokees. So you're seeing Creeks much more abrasive and trying to fight and make things happen. Then we have the Mohawks and Abenakis. They are going to receive French aid and turn against Puritan enemies. In 1704, they're going to attack English settlements in Maine and kill 48, capture 112 of Deerfield, Massachusetts. Then in 1710, New England militia joined with the British naval forces to seize Port Royal in French Acadia, but are going to fail miserably in their attack against the French stronghold in Quebec. So you're seeing that natives are looking to fight against the settlers that are there. A lot of bloody conflicts are going to happen at this point, and they are not as tribalization of across tribes at this point. They're once they've made a little tribe, they're still into just that little tribe, and they're looking just as Native Americans as a whole yet. That isn't an idea that they're really having. So definitely trying to resist European settlement still. All right, so now we're on to enslaved people. So we're going to be talking about African American communities. I talked about this a little bit in last lecture, but just to reiterate some things, planters are going to want diverse Africans coming to be slaves in order to deter revolts, because if they can't speak the same language, they don't have the same customs, whatever, they won't have a sense of community. They don't have a sense of community, they won't revolt. Numerous African languages are going to be spoken in the early years of slavery. Some Some slave owners had preferences, believing that slaves from certain areas are going to be harder workers, whatever, more muscular, whatever they're looking for. Friendship and marriages across ethnic lines are going to start blurring clan and family affiliations that Africans brought with them. Common language is going to give them a sense of community. They're going to be speaking Gula, English or French. I think that was it. Okay. And then they're going to start to have common values. And we're going to see conversion to Islam beliefs, or they're going to bring Islam beliefs with them, so be Muslim, other religious beliefs, and sometimes they'll becoming Christian. They are going to continue their own kind of cultural practices to a certain degree, but then other things are going to start to disappear, and they're going to become kind of more American in their ways, but you're going to see that community be built amongst enslaved people. Okay, resistance and accommodation. So slaves are going to be denied education. Again, I already talked about this before, just as like a little side note in the last lecture, but just to extend upon it. Slaves are going to be denied education. They can't have material possessions, like they can't accumulate them, and they don't have the right to associate with others. So punishments are going to include whipping as well as other forms of physical torture. Talked about them removing their toes, that there's those shackles and things they'll put around their necks, their feet, their arms, whatever. They'll put them in hot boxes out in the sun, like just all sorts of horrible things. White violence in the lower in the northern colonies is going to be lower up there because there's fewer slaves, and there's not as much of a belief of abuse that you have like in New England and your middle colonies, but the farther south you go, the worse it gets. Our poor whites are going to be hired to patrol the southern colonies, and they are going to be looking for runaway slaves. Slaves are going to resist in a variety of ways. They're going to run away. They're going to barter for extra food and privileges. They're going to work slowly. They're going to steal. Outright rebellion is very rare. We already talked about the Stono Rebellion, but generally they're going to be resisting in more quiet ways, or just going to be running away. They're running away to try to get to Canada or other territory that isn't conquered at this particular point. I know this is a very startling image, but it's one that your textbook has, and I feel like it is a good image in talking about enslaved people and kind of their status in society. So it says Virginian luxuries, and then we have a planter on both sides there of how he's treating his female slave versus his male slave. Abuse came in a lot of different ways: sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse for enslaved people across the colonies. Okay, so the analysis questions. You're going to look off to the right, and you're going to read those questions, and you're going to use all this wonderful information in order to answer them. If you have trouble, if you have questions about anything, come in to see me, sign up for Key Time, or just ask your question in class, because someone else might have the same question as you. I hope you enjoyed this beautiful lecture.